Back on the Patrick Netherton Show, Rogers Hampton, that's him. Patrick Netherton, that's me. We're pleased to welcome in for the first time, making his, what is this? I guess it's like a rookie at training camp. I don't know how to term this. It's the debut appearance of Larry Holder from The Athletic, a guy that has been doing great work in the New Orleans area for a long time, Times pick, and now scooped up like everyone else, it seems, by The Athletic. Larry, how are you, man?
Man, I wish I was a rookie. My bones would feel a little better. My joints, my fingers, boy, all the typing I've done, man. But I'm a grizzled veteran of covering the Saints. I can tell you that.
Well, if you're a grizzled veteran of covering the Saints, then the last minute must have reminded you of mid to late '90s Saints games. Because when I was growing up and when I first started getting into the Saints, was the late Jim Mora into Hazlitt, Mike Ditka, where the Saints seem to find new and creative ways to lose games year in and year out. And then Drew Brees and Sean Payton come along, and it seems the Saints don't have that same affliction. But it's hard to get rid of, because when Deshaun Watson goes 2 plays, 75 yards in, 14 seconds, I go, well, there's the Saints for you right there. And yet, that's not the Saints for us anymore. It was pretty remarkable.
Well, I'm still young enough to remember that the Saints and their last-second defense, despite the Nola no call, they allowed the Rams to come back, kick a field goal in regulation, send it to overtime. If the Saints don't have Alshon Jeffrey have the ball slip through his hands in the NFC division round, they probably lose that game too. They probably lose that game with bad defense at the end of the game with the Ravens outside of Justin Tucker. Well, at least it goes overtime. Justin Tucker missed the kick. So I'm not trying to douse the Saints winning flame, but still, we've seen it a few times in the past, I'd say, year or two. And if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you can't have that. So but the bar is at least raised a little bit from when we're talking about Ditka and Tim Couch throwing a Hail Mary and Ditka falling face first on the field and being like, oh, my God, we gave the Browns the first win since going back to Cleveland.
I mean, look, I was there for when the Bucs converted a 4th and 27 to ultimately go down and kick a field goal and beat the Saints back. I don't remember when that was, 99 or something. It certainly is a different feeling, because those old Saints teams would have not even gotten close to figuring out a way to win that game. I'm curious, the last minute or so, did that make a case that maybe Romeo Crennel should rethink things? And while you're at it, maybe the Saints need to rethink things with Dennis Allen. I mean, you talk about a massive amount of brain fartage going on between two veteran, pretty solid defensive coordinators in that last minute.
Well, they certainly don't want to have a lack of a safety in the middle of the field, and Kenny Stills is running around and able to catch a touchdown pass. But also, you would certainly think that the Texans would be prepared for Drew Brees to get the ball back. But it's also a wild thing where the fact that the Saints, they take the lead with 50 seconds left. Is the defense mentally prepared to go back out on the field? And then the Saints get the ball back, and is the Texans defense mentally prepared 13 seconds later in game time to go back out on the field? Breakdowns on both sides. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Also, though, you look at it, and it is week one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen some teams play pretty sloppy, and at least for the Saints' sake, hey, it's the first time they've won a season opener since 2013. So take it any way you can get it, even despite the admitted officiating blunder that happened in the first half, and they overcame that. So you might as well just say, all right, well, it's step one to even overcoming the no call. And it's funny how fate has it where there's a blown admitted call and the Saints won instead of having it go down as a defeat. So it's almost like step one to getting over that hurdle.
Yeah, and by the way, had they not won that game and Al Riveron did come out with a statement saying they missed it, boy, that would have been By the way, did you or any of your other fellow Saints journalists go with everyone else in the crowd and wear stripes for that game?
I left my officiating shirt at home, and yes, I was the one actually to talk to Al Riveron. So so it was not a long conversation. I was preparing for it to potentially be a long conversation, but Al Riveron, and why I actually spoke with him was because he was part of the call. He was on the replay booth,
right?
And that's why I spoke with him as opposed to the referee in the game. And he came out as soon as I didn't even have to ask a question. I just said, just take me through the thought process of that call, and they admitted that they screwed it up. So if they would have lost, there's no doubt that would have played a role in it, and it would have mattered. I mean, if Will Lutz gets closer at the end of the first half, kicks the field goal, probably makes it, then at the end of the game, instead of going up 6, they go up 9.
Yeah.
And a touchdown doesn't beat you. So that would have definitely played a role in what happened. And it's no wonder why Saints fans, rightfully so, are bent about officiating. It happened again. I mean, 2 games in a row of games that counted outside of preseason. You understand their troubles with the way that the officiating has worked the last couple of games.
The interesting thing is John Perry, who they added to the ESPN booth this year, former NFL ref, they actually interviewed him pregame, and because it's rare that you're interviewing the officials guy for the pregame, but they said, what do these officials need to do? And it was Hussey and his crew, and he said, look, they've got to have basically a perfect game here. They have to represent and kind of assuage everything that went down. And then he came out with, I'm going to say, probably was just before the end of the game, and he came out and said, hey, we may have an issue with how that 10-second runoff went down back in the first half, and he went through it and with everything. I thought he was a great addition to the booth. He also, by the way, questioned the roughing the kicker penalty on the missed extra point. So I thought he was a great addition. At the same time, his tenet for the officials in that game didn't work out. Those guys did not assuage anyone's issues with the officiating in the NFL.
Well, Twitter beat him by about 30, 45, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
For him saying to come out that way. And look, Mike Pereira, who's the former head of officiating at the NFL, Fox Sports analyst, they were questioning at other Twitter feeds where they monitor officiating, also questioned it. So, that was coming out early, which is why initially, I mean, I'm the one who requested, say, hey, we need to speak to the officials after the game. And so that happened. But it's something that should not have happened. And what's probably a little more troubling is that the league's head of officiating was on the headset to make the call, and he didn't even make the right call. So, boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I just can't wait for a pass interference call to come down to winning a game and losing a game, since that's the new rule that's going to be able to be challenged. So, man, it's slippery slope for the NFL right now.
No doubt about that. Talking to Larry Holder from The Athletic in New Orleans. Larry, one of the things that I was talking about down the stretch of last year, and then we talked to Zach Streif earlier this year before the season started, and I was curious about the ability for the Saints to pass deep, because Drew basically just stopped throwing deep toward the end of the season last year, and whether there was some injury he was not disclosing, age, didn't have Ted Ginn, whatever the case may be, they just stopped throwing deep, and I thought teams started to creep their safeties to the line of scrimmage, and that made it a lot more difficult to throw the short passing game. They didn't attempt to pass over 16 yards until the penultimate drive of the game. I'm curious, is that something that we're reading too much into, or is this a legitimate concern that they had everybody healthy, they had Ginn who can stretch the field, but Brees just never went deep?
Well, Brees did go deep when he needed to, 41 yards down the field, even though the pass did look a little underthrown.
And he also didn't have a great platform to throw from. He was kind of throwing sideways. He didn't really step into it.
I think the general public looks at his age and is every pass he throws, they're going to be harping on this. And I've written extensively about this at The Athletic, and it's something that it's not like over the past 3 years, Drew Brees' yards per throw on certain routes has changed much, but all it's not like Drew Brees ever had this rocket arm. I don't get why there's this panic. People see a throw or two and panic, and I get it, but Drew Brees still gets the job done.
Sure.
They cater the offense around what works for him, and he's one of the most. He's still the most accurate passer in the NFL.
No doubt.
So, yeah, it's something that you're looking, and I wouldn't say nitpick, but still, I think there's a bigger target on him because of his age, and so this debate is never going to go away. But still, it's something that if Drew Brees needs to get the ball downfield, it might not be as pretty as it once was, but I still think at spots he can certainly get it done.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that's a part of it, Larry, is that you remember Sean always would call the max protect, play action. Drew would sit back there, and he was taking a shot. It was a two-man route, and everybody was going deep, and he was going to find somebody. I haven't seen that pass play in the game plan for Sean Payton in a while. It just doesn't seem like they're even concerned about taking shots deep, and that's fine if that's just part of the game plan because they're catering to what Drew Brees does best.
I also think part of it is that they like what they have in their running game. I mean, they certainly ran the ball pretty effectively, and they've done so for the past 3 years, and that doesn't put all the pressure on Drew Brees. And so I think that's part of it as well. And you hearken back to last year, the Saints had no deep threat for a good 8-10 games without Ted Ginn. I mean, they just did not. And Drew Brees didn't trust all the receivers that he had fully. I mean, that's just apparent by the distribution of the football. So does that change this year? I don't know. But I still think that people are always going to find something to nitpick.
Yeah.
And to me, I would take Drew Brees over, 30 quarterbacks in the league, 29 quarterbacks over the league. So
yeah, trust me, I'm not on the let's trade Drew Brees train or anything. I'm just saying that it is a concern because that used to be a big part of the offense was his ability to go deep, and it doesn't seem like is as much. But let's move on from that to a couple other things. One, the offensive line play was fantastic. J.J. Watt, for the first time in his career, didn't record a stat in that game, and he's over Ramchick most of the time. How much of that is the offensive line play of the Saints and, of course, Drew Brees getting the ball out fast? And how much of that do you think may be that Watt can get more attention now with Jadeveon Clowney not being there?
I don't think it has anything to do with the latter. I think that has to do with Ryan Ramchick being one of the best tackles in the NFL. He went one-on-one with him. He got called for holding one. Mm-hmm. But I just think Watt had his lunch handed to him. I mean, that's just what it was, and it's pretty amazing to see the growth of Ryan Ramchick, and he's done that really since day one, since he was kind of that surprise first-round pick back in 2017 at the end of the first round. They got in the Brandon Cooks trade, so I just think that the Saints' offensive line is as admirable, and also I think we saw at one point on one of the touchdowns where Eric McCoy, the rookie center, Watt tried to stunt, and McCoy picked it up, boom, stopped him, and they scored a touchdown. And so I think that just goes to show you that how good this offensive line, when they're right, they're one of, if not the best in the NFL. And that's what lends you to everything. Drew Brees will play well. The running game can still be effective. It's paramount for that unit to work well for this team. And week one, they were definitely above average, and I think that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you're absolutely correct on all fronts. Larry, much appreciated, man. We definitely look forward to chatting with you as the season progresses. And are you heading out to the West Coast? You heading out on that trip?
I'm going to Los Angeles, yes, and then my cohort at the Athletic, Jeff Duncan, will be out there in Seattle. Catherine Terrell will be out for both, for practices and everything. So we will have all that covered over at the Athletic.
Well, I tell everyone all the time, if you don't subscribe to the Athletic, you're absolutely missing out on the best coverage, not only of your local team but of national as well. Larry, thanks a lot, man. Much appreciated.
Sure, Patrick. Talk to you again soon, buddy.
All right, Larry Holder from The Athletic. Good stuff from him, man. Good stuff.